Welcome to UUCC, Unitarian Universalist Church of Canada. We are a group of spiritual free thinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Kevin House, your worship associate this morning, and the service today is being led by our member, Ellie Setterwood. This service is also being live streamed to our YouTube channel. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway. And whether it's your first visit or your 100th, we're glad that you came. I have a few announcements for you. Please wear a mask. Masks are available for anyone who forgot one. Childcare this morning will be provided by Karen Alvarez. We will be collecting the cards for joys and sorrows after the first hymn. Please fill them out or type into the chat box on Zoom if you have something you would like to share. Please join us after the service for a potluck, making signs for the upcoming marches and rallies. Next Saturday, we will be marching in Rochester Pride Parade. Contact Michelle Choplet for more information. There is a Bands Off Our Bodies protest on Wednesday, July 13th at 5 p.m. at Atwater Park, Main Street, Canandaigua. The next in-person service will be August 14th. Are there any other announcements for the good of the community?
Eileen asked me to share that she wants to invite everyone in the community to participate in an intergenerational journal swap this year. Think creative spiritual pen pals. When you sign up, you'll receive a pocket journal with question prompts based on our seasonal spiritual themes and assign a partner of a different generation. You'll make journal entries of letters, poetry, stories, or art, then send or drop off the journal to your partner. We'll keep the same partners for the whole year. Participants of all ages, even pre-writing age children who are willing to make art, are welcome to join. Sign up by tomorrow using the link in your newsletter or on the church Facebook page.
And we're honored to have Scott Wright on the piano today for us. As we prepare to be fully together, I remind you to silence your phones and devices. We now enter a space of worship. I invite you to join with me in our chalice lighting words as the flame is lit. If you don't know them by heart, the number 448 at the back of the gray hymn. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We like this beacon of hope, silent press for truth and meaning, and celebration of the life we share.
Opening words for today. People say, what is the sense of our small effort? They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has a right to sit down and feel hopeless. There's too much work to do. Oh, sorry. I just want to make sure. Sorry. That's a while. Our opening hymn is 1073 in the Teal hymnal. The earth is our mother.
We must take care of
We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. We welcome you to share your joys and sorrows by laying them down on a card you found on your chair and placing it in the basket that comes by you, or typing in the chat box in Zoom. Know that whatever your heart is holding today, whether shared or not, we are with you. That was the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts support our church in its work. That work is summarized in our covenant. The covenant says, in service to the values that unite us, we will recognize the inherent value of each person, foster a community of compassion and caring for all, value our diverse opinions, and engage respectfully in all interactions. 1/4 of our plate collection for the summer season will go to Food for the Spirit, a nonprofit organization that uses the arts and crafts, that uses the arts and creative facilitation to support racial healing, ecological justice. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check into the basket, or if you are joining us from home by visiting kennedynorth.org/connection/donate, or mailing a check to UUCC at 3024 Cookie Road, Canada, 14424. In either case, make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. Now, gratefully accept the offering.
It's a lot of
Here's some of the joys and sorrows. The joy, I am making a good recovery from my wicked bout of autoimmune hepatitis. So happy to no longer be yellow, itchy, and nauseous. That's very good. From Karen's, my thoughts are with Joe and his family as they begin to mourn his father, who passed earlier this week. And another one, anonymously, we wish happiness and health for Uncle Jack and his subscribers. At this time, if there are any children who would like to out there, please go downstairs. We'll clear them up.
I think we're going outside.
Morning, everybody. Morning. Nice to see all these familiar faces. Some new ones. I'm Ellie Sivers, for those that don't know me. I'm a member of this church. I've been for many, many, many years, but my husband and I now live in Virginia. So we're up visiting. Here we are. So. Water. Sorry. Okay. At this point in the service, we're going to have a centering time. Give us these words to think about. We belong to the earth. This we know, the earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. This we know, all things are connected, blood which unites one family. All things are connected. Whichever befalls the earth, befalls the sons and daughters of the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Next two. So, I'm pretty sure that I am preaching to the choir here when I talk about the need for climate solutions. What I want to emphasize today is how to talk to everyone else about it and why that is important. Most of the ideas I'm presenting today I learned from these books, Saving Us, this one, by Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, and another one, Think Again, The Power of Knowing What We Don't Know by Anna Blaine. We'll start with a basic explanation of the climate crisis and some basic facts about global warming. The Earth is wrapped in a natural blanket of heat-trapping gases. Burning carbon increases the thickness of the blanket. Like a person, too heavy a blanket makes you overheat. Our planet has a fever. Climate change is supersizing our weather events, loading the weather dice against us. The coasts, where 40% of the country lives, are, quote, canary in the coal mine. What's happening there today will happen to all of us tomorrow. The carbon that fossil fuels emit is destroying our water, our air, our land. We as individuals can't solve the climate crisis, but according to Dr. Hayhoe, there's one simple thing that everyone can do. Talk about it. Use your voice to talk about why climate change matters to you here and now. Use it to advocate for change at every level. Talking sounds simple, almost too simple, but most of us are not doing it. The simple act of having a conversation triggers a true positive feedback effect that encourages people to act. The question is how to talk about it. How do I start this conversation? How do I help people see the connection between their lives and the climate crisis so that they are motivated enough to take action, especially with people who may think differently from you? They may have different points of view about politics. Climate change contains none of the clear signals that people require to mobilize their inbuilt sense of threat. Our first inclination may be to throw scary facts at them. But the more dire the picture painted, the less responsive is the listener. Fear and anxiety cause us to withdraw, freeze, give up. Fear coupled with uncertainty induces inaction. Overexposure to fear-based messages can desensitize people. We are prone to tuning out repeated bad messages if they do not directly relate to our lives, or if we feel the solution is worse than the problem. Social science researchers have found that the value of belonging outweighs the value of obtaining new information. All the information and facts that you share may lead to more polarization, the opposite of what you're trying to do. Some people see the climate issue as just one more item on an overflowing list of priorities. Some people fear more government intrusion and regulation in their lives. They often have a strong streak of independence. Fear of solutions outweighs their fear of climate consequences. They believe that government action to address it will decrease their quality of life, destroy the economy, and compromise their personal rights. They think that we must choose between the environment and the economy. When it comes to decision-making, emotions usually come first, reasons second. Our strong emotional attachment to a given position causes us to hold on to our pre-existing opinion in the face of significant opposition and facts. We will use all of our intelligence to show why we're right rather than admit that we're wrong. So how best to talk about it? Dr. Hayhoe reports that these 4 communication strategies are the most effective, offering simple messages repeated often by trusted messengers to you, personal stories and experiences. She recommends that we don't begin the conversation with climate. Ask people about themselves to find common ground and what they care about. To find common ground, think about who you are and what you might have in common with others, and build a conversation from there. Think about where you live or where friends and family members live. What climate issues might they be experiencing? Floods, fires, droughts. Since so much of our population lives on one of the coasts, there's a good possibility they are experiencing some climate effects. Think about where you would go or have gone on vacation and how the climate crisis has affected them. For example, the recent flooding that closed Yellowstone National Park and may have created permanent changes. Think about what you enjoy doing, your interests, your passions. If you're a hiker or skier, you can mention how much less snow the slopes are getting. If you're a gardener, you can ask, did you know that plant hardiness zones have moved an entire zone over the past 25 years? If you're a bird watcher, have you noticed that the birds are migrating differently? If you're a fisherman, are the fish moving to warmer or colder climates depending on what they need? If you're a wine drinker, which a lot of people in this area are wine growing, did you know that climate change is affecting the composition and fermentation of grapes? Think about the people you love, your children, your grandchildren, and your hopes and dreams for them. What kind of a world do we want to leave them? You can ask people about their faith and what it says about taking care of the earth and taking care of each other. When talking to people of other faiths, ask them, what does their faith tell them about our relationship to the earth, about being good stewards of the planet and loving our neighbors all over the world as ourselves, about caring for the poor, the hungry, and the sick. Caring about the climate is how we love the least of these and help other people. Tell them your story, who you are, and why you care about the climate, and why others might too. When you find out what people care about and then connect climate impacts to their values, they can see that caring about climate is already integral to their identity, and it is relevant to their lives. So take a minute and think who you could talk to. A colleague, a neighbor, a tennis partner, even a family member. Of course, that can be tricky. Think of every conversation as being 3 conversations at once: facts, feelings, and identity. But go light on the facts, they can come across as a personal attack on someone's identity. What we do changes us. What we do and say changes others. Our actions reinforce, deepen, and alter our self-identity. Create opportunities to interact with people about it. Use open-ended questions, or start with an interesting fact, and listen for things you can agree with. One conversation starter is to poll people about their attitudes. Ask them on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 meaning that climate change is not important at all, to number 10 meaning that climate change is the greatest challenge facing us today, what would be their number? And is there anything that would change their number? Here's another opening. Ask someone to stop and take a breath. Remind them that air comes from our planet, that every single resource we use in our lives is provided by the earth. All of our resources are gifts from our home, planet Earth. And some of those resources, such as fossil fuels, are finite and will eventually run out. What will we do then? The goal is to bond over shared values, such as family, jobs, the kind of food you eat, inflation problem, where you live, and then make the connection between that value and the climate. Here's an experience I had recently. I was at the local pool and the lifeguard and I struck up a conversation about how rainy it's been lately. She told me how tree rings showed how much it rained each year, and that in Colorado, where she's from, they used to have once in 100-year floods, and now they happen all the time. This became an opening for me to talk about the climate crisis and what we can do about it. I didn't start out trying to influence her or lecture her. It just flowed organically from our conversation. Dr. Hayhoe has said that too many facts can shut down communication. However, bringing up climate facts that affect us locally might resonate with people. For instance, here are some climate concerns that are specific to upstate New York. The EPA says the prevalence of Lyme disease has doubled in the last 25 years because winters are not as cool as they used. There's been an increase in poisonous algae blooms on the Great Lakes and the Finger Lakes. Our winter sports here locally, such as skiing and skating and the related tourist industry, are taking a beating. The snow is being replaced by rain. Changes to the growing seasons and the success or failure of specific types of grapes and other crops are starting to affect the farmers and the vintners. The impact of increased likelihood of climate refugees from countries devastated by climate change and the need for infrastructure to support them is going to affect all of us. The idea of these conversations is to open the door, start the conversation, plant a seed. However, one caveat Hayhoe gives us: don't waste your time on climate deniers. She says, don't beat on a wall hoping to turn it into a door. Once you connect with others and they see how the climate crisis is relevant to their lives, the next step is to encourage action. Show people that taking action can make them feel good. Maya Angelou says it best: I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. People need to know that there are solutions and they can make a difference by supporting them and advocating for them. Adam Grant gives more advice about communication in his book called Think Again, The Power of Knowing What We Don't Know. His focus is more general as he writes about influencing others and changing someone's mind. His ideas apply to conversations about issues, climate and other issues. Any issue that is fraught with emotion, such as immigration, abortion, or the death penalty. Like Hayhoe, Grant advises that the most effective way to help others open their minds is to listen. Listening well is more than a matter of talking less. It's a set of skills in asking and responding. Many communicators try to make themselves look smart by talking a lot, but great listeners are more interested in making their audiences feel smart. When people have a chance to express themselves out loud, they often discover new things. He compares it to a dance with a partner who has a different set of steps in mind. If you try to lead too hard, your partner will resist. If you adapt your move to hers or his and get your partner to do the same, you're more likely to end up in rhythm. Asking questions is like letting your partner lead. When people ignore advice, it isn't always because they disagree with it. Sometimes they're resisting the sense of pressure and the feeling that someone else is controlling their decision. We're all vulnerable to the, quote, righting reflex, the desire to fix problems and offer answers. The power of listening doesn't just lie in giving people the space to reflect on their views. It's a display of respect and an expression of care. Many people believe that preaching with passion and conviction is necessary for persuasion. Grant says that this can lead to binary bias, black and white thinking. Only one side can be right because there is only one truth. When the only options are black and white, it's natural to slip into a mentality of us versus them. When forced to choose a side, the emotional, political, and economic pressures tilt in favor of disengaging or dismissing the problem. The need to find common ground and reduce the polarization in our country recently inspired the founding of a group called Braver Angels. They were inspired by the words of Abraham Lincoln, who not only called on Americans to summon the better angels of our nature, but called on us to find the courage needed to pursue a more perfect union with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right. Excuse me. According to Braver Angels member Monica Guzman, author of the book, I Never Thought of It That Way, in one 2021 poll, most Americans thought the biggest threat to our country's way of life was other people in America. And in June 2021, U.S. voters rated division in the country as the #1 issue facing them personally. Quite a statement. At Braver Angels, they do not accept the division and reject the normalizing of the extreme polarization. The focus of their work is building civic trust and healing the wounds between the left and the right. For them, it's about challenging institutions to be better, building community together, and discovering what it means to be American in our time. Their approach is guided by their pledge. Quote, as individuals, we try to understand the other side's point of view, even if we don't agree with it. In our communities, we engage those we disagree with, looking for common ground and ways to work together. In politics, we support principles that bring us together rather than divide us. People may say, I don't have time to get involved, or isn't that what the government's for? Surveys show that 50% of people feel helpless. They don't know where to start or whether their actions will be meaningful. But action by voters is crucial. After the recent spate of gun violence, a bipartisan group of legislators finally worked together on gun safety laws. When I wrote this sermon, the bipartisan bill was sitting on President Biden's desk, and I'm glad to hear that he signed it. When Chris Murphy, senator from Connecticut, who's been trying to pass gun laws for many decades, was asked, why now? What's different this time? His reply was, the public made the difference. Pressure from constituents is what made it happen. Senator Schumer made a similar point when he said this, quote, I spoke to Republicans who said, I'm hearing, get something done from constituents I never would have heard it from before. This same principle can apply to our climate crisis. If it worked for gun safety, it should work for climate policy. Dr. Hago says that she's constantly asked, what gives you hope? And is it possible to stay hopeful in the midst of our climate situation? These questions resonate with me too, as I am generally an optimist, but I too find it hard to stay optimistic these days. She likes to think of hope as a practice rather than an emotion or a value. This idea is rooted in Buddhist philosophy. We need to roll up our sleeves and go out and look for hope. Rational hope accepts that success is not inevitable or even entirely probable. It takes courage to do that, but when we are doubtful, when the odds are low, and success is possible rather than probable, it's that courage and hope that carry us forward. She quotes Joanna Macy and Chris Jones Stone from their book, quote, Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy. Rather than weighing our chances and proceeding only when we feel hopeful, we focus on our intention and let it be our guide. As for Hayhoe's title, normally when you see a book about climate change, you're going to see it called something like Saving the Planet, Saving the Trees, or Saving the Whales. She called it Saving Us, because it's not about saving the planet. The planet will be orbiting the sun long after we are gone. The planet doesn't need us. In fact, it might be better off, arguably, without us. We are the ones who need to be saved. Together, we can save ourselves. Must be. One last part. When I do talk to people about taking action, my local climate group gives out one of these bookmarks. And it gives you an idea of how to get in touch with them. Got more, let's take one for a friend. On the back, okay, here. Take action. Our closing hymn is number 1064 in the Field Hymnal, Blue Boat Home.
me in our words for extinguishing the chalice. If you don't know them by heart, they can be found at 456 at the back of the building. Extinguish this flame, are not the light of truth, nor the community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.